The first thing I heard was the scrape of rubber and a hard bang from the rear. I held the wheel and tried to keep straight. The road climbed in narrow turns. Water ran across the asphalt in thin lines that made the tires slide. I checked the mirror. Headlights grew larger and brighter. They came close and did not back off. My phone lit on the passenger seat. The screen shook with each bump. A text came through from an unknown number. It said, "Do not stop." I did not know if it was a warning or a threat. I kept moving. The next curve was tight. I eased the brake and felt nothing. The pedal went soft. The car drifted. The shoulder crumbled. I tapped the brake again and turned the wheel. The guardrail met the front bumper. Metal twisted. Glass broke. The car tipped and rolled once. It landed on the side and slid into a ditch. The airbag hit my chest. The seatbelt held my ribs. I tasted dust and copper. Then there was quiet. I lay on my back and stared at a crack in the windshield. Rain found its way through the crack and fell on my cheek like a thin thread. I tried to call for help, and nothing came out. The horn died after one short blast. I closed my eyes because the light from the dash was too sharp. Voices came from far away. A flashlight moved across the inside of the car and stopped on my face. Someone said, "She's alive." The door would not open from the outside, so they used a tool and made space where there was none. Hands lifted me, careful and quick. A siren started and faded as if the night did not want to carry any more sound. I let go. I woke in a bed that was not mine. The ceiling lights were steady. The smell of antiseptic filled my mouth. My throat ached. When I tried to sit up, a nurse pressed my shoulder down with a light touch. She asked my name and I gave it. She asked if I knew what had happened. I said, "Car, rain, turn." She looked at the monitor and back to me. She told me I had lost a lot of blood. She said my blood type was rare. The hospital had called the nearby centers and there was nothing close enough. Then a man came in and said he could help. He signed the form and went to the donor room. It was fast. It was just in time. I asked who he was. She hesitated. She said he did not give a full name. He left a card for me at the desk. She took a small black rectangle from her pocket and set it near my hand. It was thick, with a smooth surface that showed no letters at first. When I tilted it, a number rose from the dark. No name. No logo. Only the number. I asked if he was still here. She said he had left in the night. The doctor came in and checked me. He spoke in a calm tone. There were bruises along my ribs and a mild concussion. No broken bones. He said I would be sore for days. He reminded me to wait before standing. He asked if I wanted to call anyone. I told him I would, but not yet. He told the nurse to keep an eye on my pressure and left. I turned the card over and over until it warmed in my hand. I thought of my father and the way he used to hand me simple things to calm me when I was a child. A smooth stone, a paperclip, a coin. He would say, "Hold this and breathe." I held the card and took long breaths. My phone had been recovered from the car. It was cracked but still worked. I charged it and waited. The detective from the highway unit came to ask questions. Speed, weather, anyone following. I said I had seen lights behind me. I could not describe the car. He told me the curve had taken others before me. He said they would inspect the brake lines. He gave me his card and told me to rest. When the room was empty again, I picked up the black card and dialed the number. It rang once. A voice answered before the second ring finished. He said my name. I asked how he knew it was me. He said the hospital told him I was awake. I thanked him. The word felt too small. He did not make it easier. He said there was no debt. He said he had blood, and I needed it. I asked his name. He said it without any emphasis, as if it were a fact and not a threat. Victor D'Angelo. I knew the name. Newspapers had written it. People said it quietly in halls where power liked to hide. Years ago, my father had said it once in our kitchen and told me not to repeat it. I asked why he helped me. He paused. He said because I could be helped. I asked if I had been targeted. He said the brake line told a story, and he did not like the story. I asked how he knew that. He said he had people who watched the road. He told me not to go home alone when I was released. He told me a driver would be waiting. I said I would call a cab. He said the driver would still be waiting. I wanted to hang up. I did not. I told him I would return the cost. He said cost belongs to those who count it. He said I should rest. The line went quiet. I set the phone down and held the card again. My hands shook. I closed my eyes and wished for sleep that would not bring any images with it. I drifted in and out. In the soft hours, the door opened and closed with care. Steps stopped near the bed. A hand brushed the rail. Not my skin. The same smell as before. Clean, sharp, hard to place. I kept my eyes closed. It felt like a test. When I opened them, there was only the dim light and a folded blanket placed closer to my feet. Morning made the room look smaller. The nurse brought toast and tea. She asked how I felt. I said better. She smiled and told me the paperwork would be ready soon. She asked if I had someone to take me home. I said yes. It was not a lie, but it was not the truth I wanted. The billing clerk came with a thin folder. The first page showed a large number and a balance of 0. The field for payer had a symbol I had never seen, and a last name that made me feel both grateful and trapped. I signed where she pointed and kept my face still. When I was cleared to leave, I dressed slowly. Each bend asked for patience. I thanked the nurse. She told me to call if the headache changed. I told her I would. I walked down the hall with a steady pace and tried to keep my breathing even. Outside, the air was cool and clean. A black sedan waited at the curb. A man in a dark coat held a simple sign with my name. I stood on the step and looked at him. He did not move toward me. He said, "I am here to take you where you are going." I asked where that was. He said, "To the person who can explain why you are still alive." I looked at the street. I looked at the cabs that passed without slowing. I looked back at the sedan. I did not want to be alone in my apartment with the card on my table and the sound of the night still somewhere in my ears. I walked to the car and opened the door myself. I sat in the back. The driver closed my door and took his seat without a word. We pulled away from the curb. I kept the card in my pocket and pressed it with my thumb. I asked the driver if he knew the man who sent him. He said yes. I asked if he trusted him. He said, "I trust my work." We drove in silence through streets I knew well. We did not turn toward my neighborhood. We turned toward the old part of the city where the houses sit behind iron. The car eased through a gate that opened without a visible guard. We stopped before a doorway set back from the road. The driver got out and opened my door. I stepped onto stone that had felt many shoes. The door opened. He stood there, steady and unreadable. He said my name and waited for me to speak. I heard my own voice answer, thin but clear. "Tell me why." The man who opened the door did not look like any photograph I had ever seen of him. In the papers he was larger, louder, the kind of figure who bends a room. Here, he was just tall enough to make the doorway seem small. He wore no jacket, no watch. His sleeves were rolled, his collar open. The lines near his mouth were not from laughter. He stood aside and said, "Come in," as if the act of entering his house was also a question of trust. I stepped across the threshold. The sound of rain stayed outside, but its chill followed. The house smelled faintly of wood polish and something citrus, like a memory of summer kept in a bottle. The hall stretched long, lit by low lamps. I could hear a clock somewhere, the slow metronome of patience. He walked ahead, his shoes almost soundless on the floor, and I followed because standing still felt unsafe. He led me into a room filled with books. The fire in the hearth was small but alive, like someone had lit it just to keep the silence from freezing. He gestured to a chair and sat opposite me. Between us, a small table held 2 glasses and a carafe of water. He poured one for me. I did not touch it. He noticed, but said nothing. "You shouldn't have been on that road last night," he said. His voice was calm, a low tone that filled the air without pushing it. "I didn't plan the weather," I replied. My throat felt dry even as I spoke. "The brakes were cut," he said. "That's planning." I stared at him. "How do you know that?" "I have people who see what others miss," he said. "They found your car before the police did." "That's not possible." "It's possible when you own the tow company." He leaned back slightly. "Someone wanted you gone, Miss Vega. You were not supposed to make that turn. You sound certain." "I am." "Why would anyone want to kill me?" "That's what we'll find out," he said. "But whoever it was knew your name, your route, your habits." "Habits?" I echoed. "You make me sound predictable. You read the same newspaper every morning, buy coffee from the same place, call your editor from the same bench before you go to work. Patterns make people easier to erase." His words crawled under my skin. "How do you know all of that?" He looked directly at me. "Because someone has been watching you. I had to know why." "Watching me?" My voice rose, cracked. "Was that you?" "No," he said. "But I noticed the shadow that followed you. And when your car went over that rail, I was close enough to do something." "So you just happened to be near a deserted mountain road in the middle of a storm?" I tried to sound skeptical, but it came out smaller than I wanted. He half smiled. "Coincidence is a polite word for guilt." I didn't answer. The fire snapped once and went back to its quiet. He took a folder from the shelf beside him, thin and neat. He placed it on the table, kept his hand on it. "Your father's name appears in this file," he said. He and I had unfinished business. "I know who you are," I said. "You were the reason he left politics. The reason he—" I stopped. The sentence broke where memory hurt most. The reason he died, Victor finished for me. That's what they told you. That's what everyone told me. He nodded slowly. Then let's start there. Your father tried to kill me once. He failed. Later, he saved me. It's a strange balance. I don't believe you. Quote, you will, he said. In time. I wanted to stand, to walk out, but something in his tone held me. He opened the folder and slid a photograph toward me. It was old, printed on matte paper, the edges frayed. My father stood next to Victor in an alley lit by the kind of light that only cities make after midnight. They were younger, both of them, and between them was a small boy holding a woman's hand. The woman's face was blurred by motion, but her posture was unmistakable, protective, desperate. What is this? I asked. Proof that we have both been lied to, he said. I looked again at the photo. My father's expression was one I had never seen. Not anger, not fear, something like sorrow. Where did you get this? He gave it to me the night he died, Victor said. That's not possible. It is when the man you thought dead lived for 3 more hours after the coroner's time. What? I stared at him. You're saying my father died in your arms? I'm saying he tried to make peace before he ran out of breath. He poured another glass of water, still calm. He told me to look after you. He didn't say how. He didn't say why. So when I saw your name on that hospital list, I understood. The silence pressed on my ears. I reached for the photo and felt its edges bite my fingers. You expect me to believe that he trusted you? I expect you to decide for yourself, he said. But someone out there knows what he tried to do. They believe you might have the same information. That's why you were on that road last night. What information? Something he left behind. Documents, names, proof. He let the words fall like stones. We'll find it together. Until then, you don't move without one of my men. I don't need protection from you. You need protection from those who want to finish what they started. His tone didn't change, but the words closed around me like iron. You'll stay where I can reach you. I wanted to protest, to shout, to say I wouldn't let him decide where I belonged. But somewhere behind the fear there was the heavy, quiet truth that someone had already tried to take my life. He saw the thought settle. He nodded once. Good, he said. You'll stay tonight. We'll go to the bank tomorrow. The bank? He stood. Your father left a box in trust. The key came to me after he died. If we open it, maybe we'll understand why you're still alive. I looked down at the photograph again. The child in the picture could have been anyone. The woman's face, turned away, tugged at some far corner of memory. What if I don't want to know? He said softly. The truth waits whether you ask for it or not. The clock in the hall struck once, a single note that marked the hour. He walked to the door and looked back at me. Rest. We leave at 9. Quote. When he was gone, I sat with the photograph in my hands and felt the weight of things unsaid. Outside, the rain returned, soft against the windows, like a reminder that some storms repeat until you learn their pattern. I whispered to the empty room. What did you do, Father? Morning came with a sky washed pale and a stillness that felt temporary. I had slept little, the photograph on the nightstand staring at me, as if it expected an answer. When Victor appeared at the door, I was already dressed. He said only, "The car's waiting." His tone left no room for questions. We drove through the city without speaking. The windows stayed closed, the air inside heavy with silence. I watched the buildings slide by, the shop fronts waking up, people moving through their small mornings unaware that someone's entire history could be rewritten before lunch. Victor sat beside me, hands folded, gaze straight ahead. The driver took the turns smoothly, practiced. When we stopped at a light, I saw the reflection of another car a few lengths behind us, a dark sedan, its windshield too tinted for faces. I turned slightly. Do you see that? He didn't look back. I see it. Yours or theirs. Not mine, he said. Stay calm. The light changed. The car followed. He gave one short instruction to the driver. Turn left at the bridge. We crossed into a side street lined with closed cafes and warehouses. The tail kept distance but stayed with us until we reached the bank, an old stone building that seemed too dignified for its work. When the driver pulled to the curb, the other car continued past, slow, unhurried, then disappeared into traffic. Victor waited a moment longer before getting out. Inside, the air smelled of paper and polish. The teller recognized him immediately and led us down a narrow hall without a word. We stopped at a small room with a table, 2 chairs, and a vault door behind glass. The banker produced a key, then looked at Victor. Victor reached into his coat and placed another key beside it. Brass, worn smooth at the edges. My father's handwriting was etched faintly into the tag. Box 217. My hands felt cold when he passed it to me. "It's yours," he said. "You open it." The lock turned with a click that sounded too soft for what it held. The drawer slid out, heavy with years. Inside lay a single envelope tied with a strip of dark ribbon and a small silver flash drive. The paper had yellowed at the folds. My name was written in ink that had bled slightly through the surface. I looked up at Victor. "You knew this was here all along?" "I knew he left something," he said. I didn't know what. I broke the seal. The letter was 3 pages, the handwriting uneven but firm. The first line stole my breath. "If you are reading this, I am gone by my own design. You must not believe what they tell you about me." I read on. He wrote about men he once trusted, about promises that turned to threats, about a plan to gather proof that would ruin them. He confessed to working both sides to feed information to the police and to keep innocent people from being collateral in a war he could not stop. He mentioned Victor by name, not as an enemy but as a man he owed. The last paragraph blurred before I could finish it. Victor waited. "What does it say?" "That you were right," I whispered. "He tried to save you." He nodded once, no triumph in his face. "There's a flash drive." I picked it up. A label on it read simply proof. "What's on it?" "Let's find out." He motioned to the banker, who left quickly. When the door closed, Victor pulled a small laptop from his briefcase. The screen lit, reflecting in his eyes like a thin blue flame. He inserted the drive. Folders appeared: dates, names, ledgers, payments, and one marked video. He opened it. My father sat at a desk, older, tired, the same photo I had seen in the newspaper after his death. He spoke quietly, his voice steady. He described meetings, accounts, threats. Then he said something that made me grip the table. "If anything happens to me, protect Elena. They will go after her next. D'Angelo will know what to do." I looked away from the screen. "He trusted you." Victor said nothing. The only sound was the faint hum of the computer. Outside the room, someone's footsteps passed, too quick, too loud for a bank corridor. He closed the laptop. "That's enough for now," he said. "Wait, there's more. Later." He stood and pulled the flash drive out. "We're not safe here." Before I could ask, the fire alarm shrieked through the building. Lights blinked red against the marble walls. The banker rushed back, his composure cracked. "False alarm, I think," he said. Victor didn't believe him. He took my arm and moved me toward the exit. In the lobby, people streamed toward the doors. I caught sight of the same dark sedan parked across the street. A man leaned against it, head lowered, phone to his ear. He looked up once. Our eyes met. He smiled a small, polite curve of the mouth and got into the car. Victor's grip tightened. "Get in the car," he said. The driver pulled up fast. We slid inside. Traffic had stalled, horns echoing. The sedan pulled out behind us again. Victor took the phone from his pocket and spoke in a language I didn't know, low and fast. The driver nodded and took a sharp turn onto a narrow street. Tires hissed on wet pavement. The following car missed the turn. I turned to him. "What was that?" He didn't answer immediately. "They're testing us," he said. "They want to see how close they can get." "Who are they?" "People who think your father left something more than proof." I held the letter in my lap. The paper trembled. "He wrote that you'd know what to do." "He overestimated me," Victor said quietly. "But I'll try." We drove for nearly an hour out of the city until the buildings thinned and trees began to take their place. He pointed ahead. "We'll stop where no one looks for company." The road turned to gravel. At the end of it stood a small cabin half hidden by pines. Smoke rose from a chimney as if it had been waiting for us. The driver stayed by the car. Victor led me inside. The air was warm, the kind of warmth that feels borrowed. "You'll stay here tonight," he said. "We'll figure out our next move." I placed the envelope and flash drive on the table. "I want to know everything." "You will," he said. "But not yet. You need rest." "I've done nothing but rest since the crash." He looked at me for a long moment. "Then try to remember this. Whatever you find in those papers, your father's intentions were not what they told you." "Gwent, why should I believe you?" I asked. "Because you're still alive," he said. He left the room. I listened to his footsteps fade, then to the sound of wind sliding through the trees. I touched the letter again. The ink had bled in spots where his hand must have paused too long. At the bottom, he had written one last line: "Forgive what I couldn't say." I folded the letter and pressed it to my chest. For the first time since the accident, I let myself cry. The night folded around the cabin like a secret no one wanted to keep. The pines stood tall, whispering to each other whenever the wind shifted. Inside, the air smelled of wood and something faintly metallic, Maybe the iron stove, or maybe the memory of the road we'd left behind. Victor closed the door, checked the locks, and drew the curtain across the only window that faced the drive. The gesture was quiet but absolute. He said, "You should eat something," and went to the small kitchen. I heard the click of a match, the low hiss of gas. The sound of boiling water filled the space between us. When he came back, he set a bowl of soup on the table in front of me. The steam carried a warmth that surprised me. I hadn't realized how cold I was until then. I took a sip and felt it travel through my chest, slow and steady, the way relief feels when you stop fighting it. "You cook?" I asked. "When I have to," he said. "It keeps the hands busy." I nodded. "Do they need that often?" "More than I'd like." We ate in silence. Outside, rain began again, softer this time, a gentle tapping against the roof. When the bowls were empty, he gathered them and washed them without fuss. Watching him do something so ordinary made the world tilt. It was strange, this man who filled headlines with blood and fear, standing by a sink, drawing a spoon like any other person who wanted the night to end clean. He noticed me watching. "What?" "Nothing," I said. "Just trying to understand who you really are." He leaned against the counter. "Most days, so am I." He crossed to the small table by the window and sat. "Tell me about your father," he said. I hesitated. "What do you want to know?" "What he was like when you weren't angry at him." That question found a place I had hidden well. I looked down at my hands. He was loud in the mornings, humming while he shaved. He never left the house without checking that I had an umbrella, even in summer. He believed every story could be fixed if you just told it right. "And after?" Victor asked. "After my mother died, he stopped humming," I said. "He worked more, talked less. He said he was trying to fix things for me, but I didn't know what that meant." "Maybe he thought he was," Victor said. "Did you know him well?" I asked. "Well enough to hate him, then to understand him," he said quietly. "He saved my mother once, long before you were born. There was a deal gone wrong, a bomb in a market. He pushed her away before it went off. She lived another 3 years because of that moment. You never told anyone. Some debts don't need witnesses." I sat back. The wind pressed against the walls, testing their strength. "Why did he turn against you later?" Victor looked toward the dark window. He was caught between sides that didn't care who broke in the middle. When you play messenger between men who trade in fear, you always end up carrying more than words. "You make it sound noble," I said. "It wasn't. He tried to use me the way they used him. The difference is, he warned me before he did it. That's why he lived as long as he did." I thought about the letter, the ink smudged at the edges. He said he wanted to stop them. "He did," Victor said. "He almost succeeded, but almost never changes the end." Quote. The fire popped, a small burst of light between us. I studied his face in that glow. There were shadows under his eyes that looked older than his age. I wondered if he ever slept without seeing all the things he'd done to stay alive. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. He met my eyes. "Because someone has to finish what he started, and because I owe him that." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have tonight." Quote. We sat in the quiet that follows truth, the kind that doesn't need to be louder than a heartbeat. Somewhere outside, an owl called once and went silent again. "Do you ever think about leaving it?" I asked. "The life, the guns, the men who only know orders." He gave a half smile. "Every morning I do, every night I don't." I didn't push. There are questions that sound like mercy, but feel like wounds when you answer them. He stood and checked the door again, then turned off the lamp by the window. "You can take the room at the back," he said. "It's safer. There's a lock inside. Use it." "And you?" "I'll stay out here." I hesitated, then said, "You think they'll find us?" He looked at the floorboards for a moment before answering. "They always find what they're looking for. The question is when." I nodded and went to the room he'd pointed out. The bed was simple, a thin quilt, a lamp with a weak bulb. I sat on the edge and listened. The house creaked like it was breathing. I could hear him moving in the other room, slow, deliberate, the weight of each step measured. I locked the door and lay down without undressing. Sleep came in small pieces. Between them, I heard sounds outside, the crunch of gravel, the soft hum of an engine that didn't belong to the woods. My pulse quickened. I rose, crossed to the door, and opened it a fraction. Victor stood by the window, gun in hand, finger resting on the side, not the trigger. His eyes caught mine and he shook his head once, telling me to stay quiet. Headlights swept across the wall for a heartbeat, then vanished. The engine receded, slow and cautious, like a hunter deciding whether to wait for dawn. Victor stayed by the window until even the night forgot the sound. Only then did he lower the gun. I whispered through the crack. They found us? Not yet, he said, but they're close. I closed the door, leaned against it, and let the silence settle again. The rain returned, heavier now, as if it wanted to hide us. I lay back down and listened until the rhythm of it matched the beating in my chest. The first gunshot came before the light. It tore through the quiet like a rip in fabric. I woke upright, the quilt already sliding to the floor. For a second, I thought it was thunder, until the second shot followed, closer, sharper. Then came the sound of glass breaking, the deep shout of men outside. Victor's voice cut through it. "Stay down." The door burst open before I could move. He was already inside, eyes cold, gun in hand. "Move away from the window," he said. His tone wasn't loud, but it carried something heavier than panic. I slid to the floor and crawled to the corner. The wall behind me shook. More glass. The smell of smoke crept in through the cracks. Victor crouched beside the door, aimed and fired once. The reply came fast, return fire through the boards. Wood splintered above my head. I covered my ears. He leaned toward me, voice low. "Back door. Crawl. Stay low." "I can't." He caught my wrist. Not hard. Just enough to pull me to my knees. "Do it. Now." I crawled out into the narrow hallway. The floorboards vibrated with each step he took behind me. In the kitchen, the window over the sink had shattered inward. Rain came in thin diagonal lines. I reached the back door. It was bolted. My fingers slipped on the metal latch. Victor appeared beside me and forced it open with one strong pull. "Go," he said. Cold air hit my face. The yard was all mud and shadows. I ran toward the trees, the letter from my father still in the pocket of my jacket, pressed tight against my chest. Branches whipped my hair. My breath made small clouds in the dark. Behind me, the house thundered with more shots. Then a different sound, an explosion of heat and dust. I fell to the ground. The shockwave passed like a breath across the forest. "Victor," I shouted. A hand clamped over my mouth from behind. I fought, kicked, twisted until I heard his voice in my ear. "Quiet." He pulled me behind a fallen log and crouched, breathing steady. Smoke rose above the cabin, a faint orange glow pulsing through the rain. He watched it burn without flinching. "They'll think we died in that," he said. "It'll buy us time." I tried to catch my breath. "Who were they?" He wiped rain from his face with the back of his hand. "People who don't want your father's name to matter anymore." He stood and helped me up. His coat was wet, torn at the sleeve. There was blood on his arm. Not much, but enough to see in the dim light. "You're hurt," I said. "Later." We moved through the forest. The ground was slick, the path uncertain. He knew where he was going, though each step sure, each turn measured. My lungs burned. Branches clawed at my jacket. I stumbled once, and he caught me before I hit the ground. His hand on my shoulder was firm, reassuring. "You're doing fine," he said. "Just keep moving." We climbed until the trees thinned. In the distance, I saw the faint glow of a highway. He stopped near a line of rocks that formed a kind of ridge. Beneath it, hidden by brush, sat another car, small, dark, ready. "You had this here?" I asked. "Always have an exit," he said. He opened the trunk, took out a small bag, and handed me a towel and a bottle of water. "Clean your face. You're shaking." "I'm not," I started, then realized I was. My hands trembled against the plastic cap. He looked at me for a long moment. "They weren't supposed to find us this soon. Someone fed them the location." "One of your men?" "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe someone higher." I drank the water, cold and clean, and tried to steady my breath. "I saw the way you moved back there," I said. "Like you expected it." "I've expected it for years." "You didn't kill anyone, did you?" He looked away. "You don't want the answer to that." I did, but I stayed quiet. We got into the car. He started the engine, lights off, coasting down a dirt road that twisted through the trees. Rain followed us, soft now, like it was tired of being violent. After a while, I said, "You risked your life for me again." He kept his eyes on the road. "I owed your father a debt. It doesn't end with one act. You make it sound like this is only about him." He didn't answer. The car's headlights flicked on, a weak yellow glow cutting through fog. His profile in that light was all edges and silence. I wanted to ask why he kept saving me, what he saw when he looked at me, but the words stayed inside. When we reached the highway, he finally spoke. "We can't go back to the city tonight. Too many eyes. We'll head south. There's a place I trust." Quote. "Do you trust anyone?" He smiled, just barely. "Sometimes, when I have to." I looked out the window. The sky was beginning to pale. The storm had broken. The road ahead stretched empty. "Victor," I said softly, You could have left me there, in the cabin. I told you once, he said. Your father saved me. Saving you just makes us even. He didn't see my eyes close, or the tears that came without sound. The hum of the tires filled the car. The past and present blurred somewhere between us. After a long time, he said, There's something you need to see, when we stop. What? The truth. Or what's left of it. I nodded. The rain had turned to mist now, and the first light of dawn slid across the horizon. Behind us, smoke still rose from where the cabin had been. Ahead, the road wound toward a day I didn't yet understand. He shifted gears, eyes forward. Hold on, he said. We're not finished. We reached the safe place just after sunrise. It wasn't much more than a collection of old brick walls at the edge of an abandoned quarry, half swallowed by moss. Victor parked the car behind a metal gate that squealed when it closed. The noise echoed up the hills and died. He shut the engine off and said nothing. The quiet felt heavier than the drive. Inside the building, the air was cool and smelled faintly of oil and damp paper. A table stood near the window. He dropped his bag on it, then checked the corners like a man who'd learned never to trust shadows. When he was done, he motioned for me to sit. You should rest, he said. I can't, I told him. You said there was something I needed to see. He sat across from me. His right arm was still wrapped in a makeshift bandage from the night before. I pointed at it. That needs attention. It'll wait, he said. Then, after a pause. Your father and I met long before either of us knew what the other would become. He was idealistic, too clean for the rooms he entered. I was already too dirty to leave them. He leaned back, eyes fixed on some memory I couldn't see. We needed each other. He had access to people I couldn't touch. I had a reach he didn't. Together we tried to cut out a piece of the rot. We thought it was possible. And it wasn't? It worked for a while, he said. Then his wife died. Everything changed after that. He started making choices that didn't fit his own rules. When you lose the person who reminds you why you're good, you start testing how bad you can get. He rubbed his wrist where the bandage met skin. He made a deal with the same men he once exposed. I told him it would kill him. He said it was the only way to keep you safe. So he stayed in the game. Too long. I stared at the table. He never talked about you. He wouldn't. He didn't want you to know what he'd done. He thought you'd hate him. I don't know what I feel anymore. That's honest, he said. It's a start. I asked, and your mother? You said he saved her. He looked down. She worked at a clinic near the docks. She treated the wrong patient one night someone mine wanted gone. Your father got her out before the bomb went off. When she died years later, he came to the funeral. No cameras, no entourage, just him and a white rose. He said he owed her a life. I told him he already paid it. And then you became enemies, I said. He gave a small nod. When I refused to kill a witness, he needed silenced. He warned me I'd made a mistake. A month later, the men above him put a price on my head, and his name was written on the order. You think he meant it? I think he didn't have a choice, he said. But he tried to fix it. That night in the alley, the photo you saw, he warned me they were coming. It saved me. It cost him everything. I sat back. All this time I thought he was corrupt, that he sold himself. He did, Victor said, just not for money. His words landed with a weight I didn't know how to carry. I asked, why tell me all this now? Because the people who came last night will come again. They don't stop until the story dies. You need to understand what you're part of. And you? I stay alive long enough to finish what I started with your father. Quote, you could walk away, I said. He looked at me for a long moment, then smiled faintly. Walk where? Men like me don't get new lives. We just try to make the old one mean something. He rose and went to the window. Morning light cut across his face, softening the scars there. For a second, he looked younger, almost ordinary. I've seen your type before, I said. Men who believe they can fix everything by bleeding for it. He turned, eyebrows raised. And? They usually end up bleeding alone. Maybe, he said, but at least then, no one else has to. We sat in that thin line of light for a while. The world outside was still. My head ached from too much truth. I asked softly, what happens now? Now, he said, you sleep. When you wake, we'll look at what's on that flash drive again. There's a pattern in the files your father left. I think he buried names inside the numbers. I nodded, though the thought made my stomach twist. And if we find them, then we decide what kind of justice he wanted, he said. I watched him cross to the counter, pour water into a glass, and take 2 painkillers from a small tin. He swallowed them dry. His hands shook just a little. Does it ever stop? I asked. What? The fighting. He smiled without humor. When it does, it's because someone else is fighting for you. He turned out the overhead light, leaving only a lamp burning near the table. "Get some rest, Elena," he said. "The world will still be cruel in the morning." I lay down on the small cot in the corner. The sheets smelled of dust and rain. My body ached, but my mind kept running. Through the thin wall, I could hear him moving, checking his gun, refolding papers, keeping busy so that his thoughts wouldn't find him. I realized then that for all his power, Victor lived like someone who expected to lose it at any second. Just before sleep found me, I heard his voice, quiet and almost kind. "He would have been proud of you," he said. I wanted to ask what he meant, but my eyes closed before I could. The day passed without sound. By afternoon, sunlight had thinned into a gray sheet that rested over the quarry like fog. I woke to the smell of coffee and the low hum of Victor's laptop. He sat at the table, his face lit by the pale glow of the screen. His bandaged arm rested on the edge, forgotten. He didn't look up when I moved. "There's something here," he said. "Your father hid it under code. The numbers looked like banking data, but they're coordinates." I sat beside him, still half asleep. Coordinates to what? Places where he met people, maybe. Drop sites. One is a hospital that burned down 15 years ago. Another is a warehouse by the docks. He clicked through files, fingers quick, precise. But this folder, this one, was buried under the rest. It needed a password. "And you guessed it?" He looked at me then, almost smiling. "It was your name." My breath caught. "He used me as a key?" "He trusted you," Victor said quietly, "or he wanted to make sure no one else could open it." He double-clicked the file. A single video icon appeared. The name on it was a date, 2 weeks before my father died. Victor hit play. The image was grainy. My father sat at a desk, the same one from the earlier clip, a lamp to his left. His voice was softer, slower. "If you're watching this," he said, "I failed to fix what I broke. They will erase me and call it justice. But if D'Angelo is still alive, tell him I kept my word. Tell Elena she was never the reason I stayed. She was the reason I tried to stop." He looked straight into the camera then, eyes hollow and tired. "They'll come for her." I left the proof with him. Trust no one from inside, not even those who claim to protect. The screen went black. For a long time, neither of us moved. "He knew," I said finally. "He knew they'd kill him." Quote. Victor shut the laptop gently. He also knew what his death would buy. Enough time for me to do the rest. Who's they? Some of the same names I've been chasing for years. Men who fund wars and hide them under charities. Men who will bury anyone who gets close. He rubbed his forehead. He was smarter than they thought, but not fast enough. "And now they want me because what? They think I have the files?" "You do," he said. "The flash drive, the letter, the knowledge. It's enough to make them nervous." I stood and paced the room. "So what happens now? We hand this to the police? The press?" He shook his head. "Not yet. The wrong person will make it disappear. We need to find the one who ordered the attack on you first. And then what? Kill him? If that's what justice looks like." I turned on him. "My father tried to end this without more blood. Don't make his death mean less." He met my anger without raising his voice. "Your father believed in systems. I've seen what systems do. Sometimes the only way to clean them is fire. You sound like them. I sound like a man who ran out of good options." The words hung between us, heavy as smoke. I sat back down. "You said one of those coordinates was a warehouse." "Yes." "Then let's go there." He studied me. "You'd rather face them than hide?" "I'm tired of hiding. I want to know what he was trying to show me." He considered that, then nodded once. "Fine. We go tonight." I watched him gather weapons, maps, spare phones, all with the same cold efficiency. Each movement was its own language. I realized then that everything he touched like it might vanish. "Victor," I said softly, "why didn't you tell me he made a video before?" "Because I didn't know," he said. "I thought he left me words, not his face." "And now that you've seen it?" He looked at the dark window. "Now it feels like he's in the room again." Quote. The wind outside picked up. Dust swirled through a crack in the wall. I closed the laptop and held it to my chest. "You think he forgave you?" "No," he said, "but he gave me a chance to forgive myself." We spent the rest of the afternoon in preparation. Victor traced routes on an old map. I watched the careful way he moved the pen, the precision of someone used to planning for betrayal. When he finally looked up, the day had faded into evening. "Once we open whatever's in that warehouse," he said, "there's no turning back." I nodded. "There's no back left to turn to." He seemed to approve of that. "Get your coat, we leave in 5 minutes." As I slipped it on, he handed me a small silver pendant, plain, oval, cool against my skin. "Wear this," he said. "It's a tracker. If we get separated, I'll find you." I clasped it around my neck. "You always plan for separation?" "Always," he said. When we stepped outside, the last light was fading from the sky. He locked the door behind us. A small click that sounded too final. The car waited, its engine already running. As we drove down the dirt road, the first stars appeared above the trees, sharp and distant. I looked at Victor's profile in the dashboard glow and felt a strange calm. The truth was finally moving toward us, even if it meant we'd have to bleed for it. The road to the docks was long and mostly empty. Streetlights flickered above the wet asphalt, their reflections stretching and breaking under the tires. Victor drove with one hand, the other resting near the gear shift, fingers tapping in a rhythm only he could hear. I held the laptop on my knees, its cold edge digging into my palms. Neither of us spoke for miles. When we finally turned toward the harbor, the city seemed to stop breathing. Warehouses lined the water, old and half abandoned, their windows boarded, their walls scarred with salt and time. The smell of oil and rust was thick in the air. Victor parked under a broken lamp and killed the lights. "This is the place," he said. "How do you know?" "It matches the coordinates, and because nobody should be here at this hour." He stepped out first, scanning the shadows. I followed, clutching my coat against the cold. Our footsteps echoed, soft but not soft enough. Somewhere, metal creaked. The wind pushed a loose chain against a pole. He led me to a side door. It was locked, but the lock didn't last long. He broke it with a simple twist of a small tool. Inside, the air was stale, dust thick enough to taste. Rows of wooden crates stood like sleeping soldiers. We moved through the narrow aisles until he stopped before one marked with the same number from the drive. 217. The wood had darkened with age. He pried it open with the back of a knife. Inside was a small metal box, no bigger than a briefcase. He set it on a table and looked at me. "You open it this time." My hands shook as I lifted the latch. The hinges groaned. Inside lay folders tied with twine, a flash drive wrapped in plastic, and a small black notebook. My father's handwriting covered the first page tight, careful, precise. "If you are reading this, the cost was higher than I planned. Trust the man beside you. He was my enemy, but he was also my friend. Tell him the ledger is balanced." I swallowed hard. "He left this for you," I said. Victor didn't move, his eyes fixed on the words like they might still be warm. He knew I'd find it. He opened the next folder. Inside were photos, contracts, bank receipts, names people I'd seen on television, in office, in charity boards. My stomach twisted. "These are real?" "Yes. Enough to ruin half of them. Enough to get you killed if they know you have them." Quote. "Then what are we doing here?" He looked at me. "Finishing it." A sound echoed from the far end of the building, a metallic clang, faint but deliberate. I froze. Victor closed the folder and motioned for silence. He moved toward the noise, gun drawn. The sound came again, closer this time. I whispered, "We're not alone." He didn't answer. He vanished around the corner. Seconds stretched. I heard footsteps, quick and heavy. A shadow passed the thin slit of light under the door. Then silence again. When he returned, his jaw was tight. "Someone was here. They left in a hurry. Are we followed?" "Maybe. Either way, we don't stay." He gathered the files and put them back in the box. I caught his wrist. "Victor, wait." He turned, surprised by the sound of his name. "What? Why do you keep risking yourself for this? For me?" His face softened, the hardness flickering like a light, unsure if it should stay on. "Because I failed him once," he said. "I don't intend to fail you. That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters." He lifted the box and started for the door. I followed, but the words he hadn't said stayed between us like smoke. Outside, the wind had grown colder. We walked to the car, fast, heads down. When we reached it, he placed the box in the trunk and turned toward the water. The tide was low, the surface smooth as glass. "He used to bring me here," I said quietly. "My father. He said the sea could keep secrets better than people." Victor looked at me. "Did it work?" "I think it drowned them instead." He stepped closer. The distance between us shrank to a breath. The air smelled of rain and salt. I didn't step back. "You shouldn't have to live like this," he said. "And you should?" He smiled faintly. "I've earned it." "Then stop," I said. "End it." He shook his head. "It doesn't end for people like me. We just wait until someone else pulls the trigger." Quote. The wind whipped through the space between us. I reached up, almost without thinking, and touched the cut on his cheek. He didn't flinch. "You're bleeding again," I said. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing." None of this is nothing. He caught my hand, his fingers warm against my skin. Elena, he said, my name sounding different now, softer. You're shaking. I'm not afraid of you, I said. I know. He hesitated, then leaned closer. His breath brushed my ear. You shouldn't be afraid of me. You should be afraid of what comes next. But I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Maybe I should have been, but the space between fear and something else had blurred too much. I looked up at him. His eyes searched mine like he was trying to remember what it felt like to be forgiven. When he kissed me, it wasn't sudden. It was the kind of quiet thing that happens when words fail slow, unsure, necessary. The sea behind us murmured against the docks, a sound that could have been whined or applause. When we broke apart, he pressed his forehead to mine. You don't know what you're doing, he said. Maybe not, I whispered, but neither do you. He almost laughed, a breath that never became a sound. You sound like your father. Then maybe you should listen this time. He stepped back, eyes darker now. Get in the car, he said. We need to move before they realize we're alive. Gone. I opened the passenger door, heart still unsteady, and looked back once more at the dark water. The box in the trunk, the kiss still on my lips, the storm gathering again above the horizon, it all felt like a promise I didn't yet understand. Victor started the engine. The car rolled forward, headlights cutting through fog. Behind us, the docks disappeared. Ahead, the road rose into darkness. We'll go somewhere safe, he said. There is no safe, I replied. He didn't argue. The rain began again, tapping softly against the glass. For the first time, I didn't mind its sound. Rain had followed us all night, thin and persistent, as if it meant to erase our tracks. By dawn, we were miles inland, the city far behind. Victor found a motel off an old highway, a place that smelled of dust and forgotten travelers. He parked beneath the overhang and sat for a long moment without speaking. 2 hours, he said finally. We rest, then move again. Quund. Inside, the room was small and dim, the curtains heavy enough to hide the morning. I dropped onto the edge of the bed, still wearing my coat. Victor checked the locks, then placed the metal box under the table, his movements exact, practiced. I'll shower, I said. You should too. He gave a small, distracted nod. I watched him in the mirror as I brushed my hair. His reflection was that of a man who never stopped listening for danger, even in silence. I went into the bathroom and let the water run. It came out rusty at first, then cleared. The noise filled the small space, comforting in its way. I stayed there longer than needed, trying to wash off the smell of smoke and salt. When I stepped out, the room was empty. The door to the lot was open. My heart stuttered. Victor? A shadow moved outside. I reached for my coat, fingers finding the cold shape of the pendant around my neck, the tracker. Victor? I called again. Something hard struck the back of my head. Light exploded behind my eyes. The floor rose to meet me, then nothing. When I woke, my wrists ached. A thin rope tied them to the arm of a chair. The room was unfamiliar, industrial, unfinished. Concrete walls, one flickering bulb. The air smelled of oil and blood, faint but certain. My head throbbed. A voice came from the corner. Don't move too fast. You'll make it worse. It wasn't Victor. A man stepped into the light. He was younger, lean, wearing a suit that didn't fit his body or his eyes. I recognized him from the night at the cabin, the one who'd driven us. You, I said. My throat was dry. He smiled, a small, nervous gesture. He trusts too easily. I told him this would happen. Where is he? On his way, the man said. We sent him an invitation. He held up my pendant between 2 fingers. Pretty thing. Transmits well. He'll find you soon enough. What do you want? Just the box. Quote. I shook my head. I don't have it. He crouched in front of me, his smile fading. He thinks you can save him, he said. You can't. The people who paid for that flash drive don't care about you, about him, about your father. They just want the evidence gone. Then take it. Oh, we will, he said, but we'll start with leverage. He reached for his phone, sent a message. Somewhere outside, an engine started. Victor came in less than 20 minutes later. I heard the door slam, boots on concrete. The guard near me went rigid. The younger man, Paolo, I remembered now, stepped forward. Put it down, he called. Gun on the ground or she dies. Victor walked into the light, calm but sharp-eyed, his coat damp from rain. He saw the rope around my wrists, the cut on my temple. Then his gaze landed on Paolo. I should have known, he said. You always talk too much. Talking's not the problem, Paolo said. Trust is. Quote. You were with me 10 years, Victor said quietly. You think this will make you free? It'll make me rich enough not to care. Victor's smile was thin. Then you haven't learned a thing. The guard raised his gun. The sound that followed was too quick to process one flash, one breath. Then the guard was on the floor, the gun skittering away. Victor's pistol smoked faintly. Paulo stepped back, dragging me upright. The rope bit into my skin. "Drop it," he shouted. "You'll shoot through her." Victor's aim didn't waver. "Maybe," he said, "but maybe not." "You won't risk her," Paulo said. Victor's voice dropped. "You think you understand what I will or won't do. You don't." He shifted slightly, eyes flicking toward me. I felt the meaning in the look. "Wait." Paulo's grip tightened. "Give me the drive, or she bleeds first." Victor's tone was steady. "You don't have to do this." "I do," Paulo said. "They already paid for the job." Quote, "Then I'll make sure they never pay anyone again." Paulo moved the gun to my ribs. My pulse hammered. "Victor, close your eyes," he said. There was a single breath between command and action. A sudden noise, a crash near the door. Victor fired once. Paulo's gun went off at the same time. The impact threw me sideways. I hit the floor, the chair breaking under me. My ears rang, and for a second I couldn't tell who had been hit. When the sound cleared, Paulo was on the ground, clutching his side, blood spreading beneath him. Victor crossed the room fast, kicked the gun away, and cut the rope from my wrists. "You're hurt?" he asked. "No," I said, shaking. "You?" He didn't answer. There was blood on his sleeve, but he ignored it. He pulled me to my feet. "We need to go," he said. "Others will come." He took my hand, and we ran. The hall outside was long, lined with broken windows. The rain outside was louder now, slanting in through the cracks. We reached the exit just as headlights swept across the yard. Victor stopped, looked back at me. "Stay behind me." I nodded, breathing hard. "You can't fight them all." "I don't need to. Just enough to get you out." He fired at the headlights. Glass shattered. Engines revved. We ducked behind a pile of crates. Bullets ripped the air. He grabbed my wrist, pressed something small and cold into my hand, the flash drive. "If I don't make it, don't," I said. "Don't say that." He met my eyes. "If I don't, you take this to Ryan Vale at the Tribune. He was your father's friend. He'll know what to do. Then you'll tell him yourself." He smiled, faint and tired. "You sound like him again." The next volley came closer. He stood, fired back. "Run when I say," he shouted. "Not without you." He glanced over his shoulder. "That's an order." He threw a smoke grenade from his pocket. It rolled across the wet ground, releasing a thick white cloud. The world vanished into haze. He turned to me once more, eyes hard but kind. "Now," he said. I ran. Through the smoke, through the open gate, through the storm. Behind me, the noise of gunfire faded, replaced by the relentless hammer of rain. My lungs burned, my vision blurred. When I looked back, the warehouse was a blur of light and smoke. "Victor!" I screamed. But the night swallowed his name. Rain poured so hard it felt like the sky was breaking open. I stumbled through puddles that reflected the warehouse lights behind me, every flash of lightning carving the world into silver and shadow. My lungs screamed for air. I called his name again, but only the storm answered. When I turned back, the smoke had thinned. The gunfire had stopped. There was only the faint crackle of fire catching on wet crates. I hesitated, heart pounding so loud it felt like it might draw bullets back from the dark. Then I ran toward the sound. Inside, the air burned with gunpowder. The haze hung low, stinging my eyes. 2 men lay motionless near the door, their faces hidden by smoke. I stepped over them and kept going, past the broken boxes and scattered papers, until I saw him. Victor was on the floor, half sitting against a pillar. His gun rested beside his leg. His shirt was soaked dark down one side. His head tilted back, eyes half open. "No," I whispered. I dropped to my knees beside him. His breath came shallow. "You shouldn't." He started, then coughed, blood streaking his lip. "You shouldn't have come back. You told me to run, not to leave you." He smiled, faint. Always so literal. "Don't talk," I said. "Let me see." He tried to push my hands away, but I found the wound just under his ribs. The blood was hot against my fingers, pulsing. I tore a strip from my coat and pressed it hard. He groaned, teeth clenched. I called for help. I lied. "They'll be here soon." "We don't have that kind of soon." I met his eyes. "Then we'll make it." He laughed once, low. "You sound like your father." "Good," I said. "He lived longer than anyone expected." He started to speak again, but the words collapsed into another cough. His head dropped forward. "No, stay with me." The blood kept coming, darker now, slower but steady. I remembered the hospital, the way the nurse had said rare, the way she'd looked at the chart. I tore open the kit from his pocket, found a small transfusion line. My voice shook as I spoke. You once gave me your blood, I said. Now it's my turn. Elena, don't. Shut up, I whispered. Let me save you. I pushed the line into his arm, then into mine. The pain was sharp but clean, the tube filled with red, pulsing between us. His eyes widened, then softened. This isn't how it works, he said weakly. It's how it has to. He tried to smile, but his strength was gone. I held the pressure on his wound, feeling our pulses mingle his faint, mine racing. The world narrowed to the sound of our breathing, to rain tapping on the metal roof, to the rhythm of something I didn't want to end. Why would you risk this? He asked. Because I can, I said. Because you did. He closed his eyes for a moment. Your father said you were stubborn. Quote. He wasn't wrong. Minutes stretched, marked only by the steady flow between us. My arms went numb. His skin, cold at first, grew warmer. He opened his eyes again, unfocused but alive. You saved me, he said. Not yet, I whispered. Don't make me regret it. A siren wailed in the distance, faint, then closer. He tried to sit up. I pushed him back gently. Stay still. Let them find us. He shook his head. Police will bring questions. Too many answers get people killed. Quote. I'll handle it, I said. Elena. I leaned closer until my forehead touched his. You're not dying in another warehouse. Not like him. That stopped him. He looked at me, and for the first time since I'd met him, his eyes were afraid. Not of death, but of leaving something unfinished. Your father would hate this, he said. My father would understand. The sirens grew louder. Red and blue lights began to stutter through the broken windows. He whispered something I barely heard. What? I asked. Run when they see me, he said. They'll arrest me. Then they'll have to arrest me too. He tried to argue, but his breath caught. I squeezed his hand. No more debts, Victor. Not between us. The doors burst open. Voices shouted. Flashlights swept the room. I felt hands on my shoulders pulling me back, a paramedic shouting orders. They lifted him onto a stretcher, the transfusion line still connecting us. Someone cut it, quick and precise. A wave of dizziness hit me. I grabbed his hand before they pulled him away. You stay alive, I said. He didn't speak, but his fingers tightened around mine once an answer. Then they carried him through the rain to the waiting ambulance. I stood in the doorway, soaked, shaking. The flash drive was still in my pocket. The night smelled of smoke and iron. I looked up, and for a moment, I thought I saw my father's face in the reflection of the flashing lights, watching, maybe approving, maybe just gone. The ambulance doors closed. The sirens faded. The rain began again, steady and endless. I whispered to the empty air. You saved me once, Victor. Now you owe me. The hospital smelled the same as the one from my first night with death disinfectant. Metal, too much light. I hated that smell. It made survival feel sterile. Victor lay in a room at the end of the hall, guards posted outside like a quiet promise that nothing would stay simple. They didn't stop me when I walked in. Maybe they had been told I was the reason he was breathing. He looked smaller in the bed, a tangle of wires and machines. His left arm was bandaged. The monitor blinked in calm defiance of what he'd done. I stood by the window for a long time before speaking. You're awake. His eyes opened. Barely. His voice was rough. They told me you gave blood again. I had some to spare, I said. You keep taking it. He smiled weakly. I'm consistent. You almost died, I said. Again. Quote. I told you to run. I told you I wouldn't. We left it there. The rain tapped against the glass. Beyond the curtain, the city blurred into gray. A doctor entered, checked his vitals, said something about surgery and recovery. Victor nodded through it, patient but distant. When the doctor left, I asked, what happens now? He didn't answer immediately. They'll charge me, he said. Maybe they'll believe I was helping your father. Maybe they won't. It doesn't matter. It does. Quote. He shook his head. No, what matters is the files. They're safe, I said. I gave them to Ryan Vale at the Tribune. He promised to release them if anything happens. Victor closed his eyes. Your father trusted him. He trusted you too, he said. That was his mistake. I moved closer to the bed. Stop pretending you don't care. He forgave you. That's what the letter meant. He opened his eyes again. And what about you? I'm trying, I said. That's more than I deserve. Quote. He looked toward the window. The clouds had broken. A thin line of sunlight touched the edge of the sill. When the press gets the story, The city will tear itself apart for a week, he said. Then they'll move on. But maybe something good will stay behind. You could help it stay, I said. Talk. Tell them what you know. I will, he said. It's the only way to stop them from finding you again. I wanted to argue, but his face told me the decision had already been made. If you confess, they'll lock you away. Better a cell than another grave, he said softly. Your father thought truth was a weapon. He was right. He just forgot how sharp it was. We sat in silence. The machines hummed their steady rhythm. He looked tired but not broken. I realized then that this was what peace looked like for him, quiet, painful, honest. He said, when I get out of here, I'll go to them. I'll give them everything. You'll go to prison. Foratim. Hemet muyais. But you'll be free. That's not fair. He smiled. Nothing worth doing ever is. I wanted to touch his hand but stopped myself. Instead, I said, the article will go live tomorrow. Ryan says they have evidence enough to prove everything. Good, Victor said. He was always stubborn. So was my father. So are you, he said, and for a moment his voice almost sounded like pride. The next day, the headlines spread faster than the rain could fall. Names, dates, money, everything exposed. Politicians resigned. A charities board dissolved. Cameras crowded the hospital lawn. Reporters shouted for statements. I walked past them with the letter in my pocket and told the truth, just once, on live television. My father died protecting a story, I said. He wasn't perfect, but he was brave. The man who helped him wasn't a hero, but he saved more lives than he took. This is for both of them. The video reached millions. Some believed me. Some didn't. It didn't matter. The truth was out. When I went back to his room that evening, he was sitting up, a guard reading a statement beside him. He signed each page without hesitation. When it was done, he looked at me. It's over, he said. Is it? For now. He reached into the drawer beside the bed and took out the black card I'd first seen in the hospital weeks ago. He handed it to me. You can stop carrying my debts. I looked down at it. What should I do with it? Keep it, he said. So you don't forget what kind of world this really is. I slipped it into my bag. And you? I'll do my time. They said 3 years with cooperation. That's long. He smiled faintly. It's shorter than a lifetime. I didn't cry until I reached the hallway. 2 weeks later, I stood outside the courthouse as they led him through the crowd. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions he didn't answer. He turned once, found me in the noise, and nodded. Just once. Then he stepped into the transport van. That night, I wrote the last line of my article. Some debts are paid in money, others in blood. The hardest ones are paid in silence. I sent it to Ryan, closed my laptop, and watched the rain return against the window. 3 years later, the rain fell just the same. It came soft this time, not angry, almost shy as it brushed against the headstones. The grass around my father's grave had grown thick and green. I had come every month since the trial ended, sometimes with flowers, sometimes with nothing but my own silence. Today I carried a single white rose. The air smelled of earth and salt. The city was quieter now. The men who had ruled from shadows were gone, some in prison, some vanished. My name had stopped appearing in headlines. The world had moved on, and that was its mercy. I knelt, touched the cold marble, traced the letters of my father's name. It's done, I whispered. Your story made it out. You were right about the truth. It doesn't save anyone, but it sets the rest of us free. A car door closed behind me. I didn't turn. I knew the sound of that engine, the rhythm of those footsteps. I looked up when they stopped beside me. Victor stood a few paces away. No coat, no guards, only a simple gray shirt that didn't belong to any uniform. The rain made his hair darker, the lines around his eyes deeper, but he was whole. They let you out, I said. He nodded. Good behavior. Or maybe they got tired of me. He rose slowly. You look different. 3 years of walls will do that. He looked at the grave. I thought this would be harder. It still can be, I said. He smiled faintly. You haven't changed. Neither have you. I've changed, he said. I just don't know into what. We stood in silence. The rain softened, almost a blessing. He crouched and placed 2 roses beside mine, one white, one red. One for him, he said. One for what we couldn't give back. I watched his hand linger on the stone, the way it trembled slightly before pulling away. I read your articles, he said. Every one of them. You kept your promise. I told the truth, I said. That's all. That's more than most people do. He straightened, looked at me. You never visited. What? They wouldn't have let me, I said. And I didn't know what to say. You just said it. We started walking toward the car. the wet gravel crunching underfoot. I glanced at him. "What will you do now?" "Disappear, maybe," he said. "Someplace quiet. I'm not built for peace, but I'll try." "Try somewhere with sun," I said. "You've had enough rain." He laughed softly. "And you?" "I keep writing." "About me?" "Not yet," I said. "Maybe someday, when I can tell it without bleeding." Quote. We reached the car. He opened the door for me, the old courtesy of a man who never forgot manners even when he forgot mercy. I stopped, looked at him. "You could stay," I said. "Start over. The city isn't the same anymore." He shook his head. "It never is. I don't want this to be goodbye." "It doesn't have to be," he said. "But some stories only end once we stop talking." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring, simple, silver, worn smooth. "Your father gave me this the night he died. Said it was for the person who taught me forgiveness. Took me 3 years to realize who that was." He placed it in my hand. It was warm despite the cold air. "I can't," I began. "You can," he said. "It's not a promise. It's a reminder." I closed my fingers around it. The metal pressed into my skin, solid and real. "Will I see you again?" "Maybe," he said. "When it rains like this." He turned toward the car, opened the door, and paused. "Elena?" Quote. "Yes?" He looked back, the faintest smile crossing his face. "You saved me twice. Don't make a habit of it." The car door shut. The engine started. I stood there, the ring in my palm, the rain washing the road into silver. I watched until the car disappeared down the hill. Then I looked back at the grave. The 2 roses lay side by side, white and red, their colors bleeding together where the water touched them. I knelt once more and placed the ring between them. "Debt paid," I whispered. The clouds began to part, letting through a thin line of sunlight that fell across the stone in my hands. For the first time in years, the air felt light. I closed my eyes and breathed it in. He was gone, but not lost, and I was still here alive, unafraid, carrying what was left of both of them into whatever came next. The wind shifted, gentle against my face, and for a heartbeat I could almost hear his voice. "Keep living." I smiled, stood, and walked toward the sun.